Trump is in the business of kidnapping foreign leaders, spinning narratives, stealing resources. Let's go to it. Here it is.
U.S. forces capturing Maduro and his wife from his own country, taken to the USS Iwo Jima. President Trump posting this picture of Maduro on board. ABC News obtaining these images showing the ousted leader handcuffed on the tarmac in New York, dressed in a blue sweatshirt, sandals, and a black beanie, flanked by DEA agents. Just hours after being captured and removed by American forces. It capped off a dramatic military operation that ended with President Trump declaring the U.S. will now run Venezuela and seize control of its oil reserves, vowing to take a, quote, tremendous amount of wealth out of the ground.
We're going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition.
Back home, members of Congress caught off guard, only notified after the operation began. Some this morning questioning the legality.
You should not question the legality of a constitutional mandate that says only the United States Congress can enact articles of war. It is, in fact, a violation of constitutional law. Donald Trump has done something that other leaders of this nation have done before. But Trump has told you out loud he's doing it. Understand, Trump is an expression or a product of cause and effect over decades being unchecked. It started when the first president of this nation was able to engage in war, international conflict, without the approval of the United States Congress, and Congress did not impeach him then. It started when the presidential powers no longer could be checked by the congressional powers, even though they are co-equal in the Constitution. And now you have what you have. We'll get into it. The New York Times reported at least 40 people were killed in U.S. military strikes in Venezuela. This was part of Donald Trump's operation to capture the dictator, President Maduro. Maduro and his wife were arrested and flown to the U.S. in the daring operation. He was charged in federal court in New York with narco-terrorism, weapons charges, and cocaine importation conspiracy. Maduro and 3 other defendants trafficked, quote, thousands of tons of cocaine to the United States, according to the indictment. They've been doing that. That's nothing new. As a matter of fact, Donald Trump recently pardoned a head of state for doing the same thing. Pardoned him. Said, oh, guy was given a bad break here. Should not have gone at them like that. So drug trafficking claims specific to Maduro has been scrutinized. Here it is.
You said that Maduro is responsible for drug trafficking. You recently pardoned the former president of Honduras, who was convicted on many drug trafficking. Can you explain how these two situations are different?
Well,
would you ever pardon Maduro?
I endorsed, as you know, the winning president, the man who won in Honduras. I endorsed the man who won in Chile. I endorsed the man who won in Argentina, and we are doing very well with that whole group. What the man that I pardoned was, if you could equate it to us, he was treated like the Biden administration treated a man named Trump.
He was treated like the Biden administration treated a man named Trump. A billionaire white guy who is well connected politically just cannot get a fair shake in this country. Poor Donald Trump, the everlasting victim. Put up the picture of his brain trust. Trump posted pictures of his brain trust orchestrating the capture of the Venezuelan dictator inside a Mar-a-Lago war room. Yes, Mar-a-Lago war room. And many social media users noticed something in the background. A giant TV screen with an X tab open. They were on social media providing propaganda, engaging. The head of defense can barely operate his laptop. Put it up again, Jordan. He's having trouble figuring out how to use that device in front of him. Twitter D and Twitter damn dumb. Every single one of them. Who else knew beforehand? Trump admitted to telling oil companies about the attack before and after it happened. Okay, obviously we need to tell those guys. I mean, cornerstone of democracy here. The oil tycoons. Here it is.
Did you speak with them before the operation took place?
Yes.
Did you maybe tip them off?
Before and after. And they want to go in, and they're going to do a great job for the people of Venezuela.
States need to take over the Venezuelan oil industry.
Well, we don't need to. First of all, let me go back up. We don't need Venezuela's oil. We have plenty of oil in the United States. What we're not going to allow is for the oil industry in Venezuela to be controlled by adversaries of the United States. You have to understand, why does China need their oil? Why does Russia need their oil? Why does Iran need their oil? They're not even in this continent. This is the Western Hemisphere. This is where we live. And we're not going to allow the Western Hemisphere to be a base of operation for adversaries, competitors, and rivals of the United States.
But we can't take a chance after having done this incredible thing last night of letting somebody else take over, where we have to do it again. We can do it again, too. Nobody can stop us. There's nobody that has the capability that we have. You know, when I watch that war in Russia going on and on and on and everybody dying, and it's like it's primitive.
So the reason for an illegal war, not approved by the United States Congress, which is constitutionally mandated, is because there are adversaries in America who have control and influence over oil in Venezuela. And in order to, make their power less potent, you decide to wage a war against the nation illegally, openly steal their resources, call your co-conspirators before going in and doing so, confirming within 24 hours that you have done it, and encouraging them to hurry up, get in there, and take that damn oil. Rubio is correct as far as oil and need. He's correct. America doesn't need more oil. As a matter of fact, we really don't need oil, period, if alternative energy solutions became a mainstream dynamic in the halls of Congress. But what do you need in Venezuela? Well, you have to figure out a way, once again, my speculation. You have to figure out a way to make up for the failed economic policies that your domestic policies have created in the United States of America. Bottom line, you need more capital. You need more capital. And when you can't figure out how to do that based on policy, influence, persuasion, politicking the old-fashioned way, you start doing resource grabs and colonization. My opinion. The New York Times. The New York Times and the Washington Post learned of the Trump administration's bold overnight operation to strike Venezuela shortly before it happened, but refrained from reporting on it right away. According to a Saturday night report, CMA4's Max Tani and Shelby Talcott reported that both papers declined to put out a story right away for the safety of American troops. The Washington Post championed Maduro's capture as a major victory for American interest. Did an online bettor know as well? So one poly market bettor has drawn the attention of many ex-users after winning more than $400,000 betting on the dictator being ousted just days after joining the platform. The account started placing bets on Maduro being booted on December 31st, 2025. The account made several bets on Maduro being removed by the end of January, starting with a New Year's Eve bet for $1,238.34. That account started adding to its position over the next few days, including multiple bets of $6,000 or more. There was an $85 bet mixed in there as well for good measure. All in, the account bet $32,538.34 and redeemed $436,000 plus. On Saturday morning, hours after Donald Trump announced that the U.S. military had captured Maduro and his wife. So this online betting platform is based on unique and creative things to bet on. It's basically how it works. So it seems really odd that a guy who just showed up would pick such a unique thing and precisely time it in order to bank like this. Those are the issues. More casualties from the airstrike. The Cuban government said on Sunday that 32 of its citizens were killed during the U.S. raid on Venezuela to extract President Maduro. Havana said there would be 2 days of mourning on January 5th and 6th in honor of those killed, and said funeral arrangements will be announced. Speaking of Cuba, Cuba could be Trump's next target. Here it is.
Is the Cuban government the Trump administration's next target, Mr. Secretary? Very quickly.
Well, the Cuban government is a huge problem. Yeah, the Cuban government is a huge problem. First of all,
is that a yes?
Cuba, but I don't think people fully appreciate. I think they're in a lot of trouble. Yes.
Cuba is ready to fall. You know?
Yes.
Cuba looks like it's ready to fall. I don't know if they're going to hold out.
Was there a final
But
straw?
Cuba now has no income. They got all of their income from Venezuela, from the Venezuelan oil. They're not getting any of it. And Cuba literally is ready to fall. And you have a lot of great Cuban Americans that are going to be very happy about this.
Are you considering U.S. action in Cuba?
We're not going. I think it's just going to fall. I don't think we need any action. It looks like it's going down.
I want to remind every Trump supporter, every MAGA participant, that you told me you liked Trump because he believed in smaller government, because he believed in not getting involved in international conflicts, because he did not see America as the world's police, that he would respect the U.S. military and he would make sure that you had a better economic outcome and reality. Since he has been elected, he has started conflicts with nations we had no war conflict with. He has bypassed the specific rules of the U.S. Constitution to do so. You are spending more for basic eggs, cheese, bread. Everything is higher. You're making less money, and the money that you make doesn't go as far because, well, inflation is real. Colombia may also be on the radar. Trump, on Sunday, issued a not so thinly veiled threat to Colombian President Petro that he will be the next Latin American leader ousted by the U.S. military. Trump said Petro's days running Colombia are numbered while speaking to reporters aboard Air Force One. He said Venezuela is a, quote, sick country that was led by a narco-terrorist in dictator Maduro until he was captured by the U.S. on Saturday. Quote, Colombia is very sick too, run by a sick man who likes making cocaine and selling it to the United States, Trump said. And he's not going to be doing that, doing it for very long. Let me tell you, this man wants you to believe that the president of a sovereign nation is cooking cocaine in his home and selling it to you. That's what he said. A female reporter then posed a question to the president, quote, so there will be an operation by the U.S. in Colombia? Sounds good to me, Trump responded. Sounds good to me, he said. Is there a cognitive issue with him? Perhaps. Sounds good to me. Let's go with it. Greenland is another possibility. Remember he was saying this madness a while ago? Trump suggested the next United States takeover target might be Greenland. Greenland. Telling the Atlantic's Michael Scherer on Sunday that, quote, we need it for defense. When asked about Rubio's words, Trump stopped short of announcing official action, though he once again reiterated America's need for Greenland. They're going to have to view it themselves, Trump said of Greenland's citizens. I really don't know. He was very generous to me, Marco, yesterday. You know, I wasn't referring to Greenland at that time, but we do need Greenland. Absolutely. We need it for defense. Okay, we'll go ahead and take over Greenland. This is how international policy is being made from a nation that has the power and might of military force and economic power. I don't care if you voted for Trump. You didn't vote for this, Trump, for sure. You didn't vote for this. And it's okay to say you made a mistake. We all do. It's okay to say you were wrong. It's okay to say somebody got into office and they were not who you believed them to be. We have all voted for people like that. There is no shame in admitting this man is not the man you believed him to be. Naturally, people like myself and others saw it before you did. It happens. But none of those who voted for Trump were checking for any of the policies he's bringing you every day. All right, we'll keep updated. Yasmin, thoughts on this?
Yeah, there's a lot of thoughts. There's a lot of angles to this that are, they're kind of hard to keep track of. First of all, we do still need oil here in the United States from places like Venezuela and Canada. The United States loves to say that we're energy independent, but a lot of that independence, the claim for that comes from things like fracking, right? We get a lot of shale oil here in the United States. It's a different kind of oil from the heavy oil that we get in other places. So we need a lot of the shale that we ship out. We also have to import other oil from places like Venezuela. And we have to do that in part, not just because we need that oil, but also because we do a lot of oil refining here in the United States. We do a little bit up in like the Chicago, Great Lakes area, some over in California, and a lot right here down in the Gulf Coast. So if we stopped getting this oil in from places like Venezuela, our refineries wouldn't have oil to refine and our economies would collapse. I live in Houston, and Houston is considered to be the oil capital of the world. And that is because not just, a lot of the headquarters are here, but because we have a lot of oil refineries that live right here in the Houston Ship Channel and all along the Gulf Coast. Also, as you mentioned, Trump did not have congressional approval for going into Venezuela the way that he did. And in my opinion, he's trying to do a very similar play like what we saw George W. Bush do with Iraq back in the early 2000s. However, they've already been using a lot of the same language that they used back in the day whenever Bush was trying to justify his invasion of Iraq. But Trump is missing a big thing that George W. Bush had to his benefit back then. Trump didn't have a proper PR campaign to precede this invasion into Venezuela. George W. Bush, he had September 11th, right? That's all he really needed. So he had a very plausible story to tell a very gullible and uneducated and fearful public. And Trump was completely lacking that. He tried to kind of make one up himself. He tried to fabricate one. He tried to say, oh, they're shipping all these drugs into our country. But most people didn't believe that anyway, because there was no evidence to suggest that that was actually the case. All we saw was our government attacking these fishing boats and killing civilians in international waters. And these days, the public is far more aware of the world and the role that the United States plays in that world than we were back in 2001. So we're not falling for it as easily as we did. Back then, George W. Bush could tell us that they have weapons of mass destruction and just trust me, bro. And the American people were like, okay, I guess they must have it. These days, we're like, where are the drugs? Show me the drugs. I don't see any. So On top of that, now Donald Trump has gone into Venezuela. He captured Maduro and his wife, brought them to New York City on, what was it, the day or the day after a brand new Democratic Socialist brown mayor was sworn in to New York City. So that's interesting. And then he keeps saying, as his justification for what he did, it's less about, well, I'll get to that in a minute. So he keeps saying that Venezuela has stolen our oil in their land. That is what he's trying to tell the American people. He's making it sound as if they came and did like this big piracy operation and just grabbed all of our oil and then ran back to Venezuela with it. That is not what happened, as we should expect from Trump by now. It's just not an accurate statement. Basically, Venezuela asserted more control over its foreign-owned oil assets. This has been going on since back in the 70s, and it's been progressing up till now. And basically, because they started doing this, Venezuela was supposed to pay over $8 billion to ConocoPhillips in compensation for removing some of their concessions in their country. Venezuela has not paid that $8 billion. And so that is the justification that Trump is trying to go with, saying, oh, well, they owe ConocoPhillips $8 billion, so we get to invade their country and depose their leader. On the other hand, there's also there always has to be a reason and then the real reason, right? So I do think that Trump wants credit in some way. George W. Bush, he got Saddam, and Obama, he got bin Laden. Trump gets Maduro, and he wants to be seen as a liberator. He needs to win back some goodwill. Because as you mentioned, Doc, a lot of the people who voted for Trump did not vote for this. They did not vote for further international intervention. They did not vote for our country to now start running an entirely different country, right? So now he needs to justify his departure from his America First platform to his America First base. So if he can convince people that this was all a good thing and that the Venezuelan people wanted and needed this, even though we should all know by now that US intervention never comes without there being something in it for us, and even though we know that the United States historically justifies its imperialistic actions by playing the role of liberator, he can still now say, look, I did a good thing. I might be terrible. I might be the worst president. I might have broken every promise to my base. But look, I did a good thing. And these Venezuelan people, some of them are happy about it. And one more thing to keep in mind is what Secretary Marco Rubio said. He said that the US believes that it controls the Western Hemisphere, or that it deserves to control the West, right? That is a thing that Marco Rubio, I don't know if he let slip or if that was an intentional thing that he was trying to say, but that's what it came off as. And that's an insane statement, not just because it's insane on its face, but also because the Russians and the Chinese are already here in the West, and they've been here for a long time. So when Trump, back during his first term, when he was busy trying to bring back the coal industry, China was looking forward, and they were busy building partnerships and infrastructure all across Africa, and yes, all across South America, right here in the Western Hemisphere. So now it's becoming a problem for the US for various different reasons. So now the Trump administration has to act erratically and illegally to counter the threat that has already been brewing right here under our noses. And since he has done this, and he's gotten away with it for the most part, because who out there is going to challenge the US military? Who out there is going to say, that was a bad thing? He is likely to do it again. He has made jokes, that's how they always pass it off as jokes, but you have to take everything he says seriously, because it doesn't come from nowhere. And even if it does come from nowhere, once it's out in the universe, he's like, well, I guess that's a thing that we're going to do. So Greenland, the jokes about Greenland, we should never have discounted any of that. The jokes about Canada, we should never discount that, because we get a ton of that same heavy oil from Canada. Also, whatever he's doing in Cuba and Colombia, all these other countries need to watch out. And in Europe, they have not said anything against Trump and what he has done, because I don't know, they're afraid that he's going to continue to just tariff them into oblivion, because he's already tariffed them into submission and silence.
Very well said. And I say often, the first casualty of war is truth. When the administration contextualizes drugs coming to America, those are orders. They're ordered by Americans. This country is the greatest consumer of illegal narcotics. And those ships, those boats, are coming here because consumers ordered it. And until you solve the crisis at home, you will always have those orders coming, no matter how many runners you kill. So they're not authentic about approaching the problem, is my point.